Good evening. It is the 16th of February 2023. You're tuned to KBC Channel 1 and this is Thursday Prime Edition. I am Regina Manyara. We're just in time for comprehensive news that touches on matters of politics, business as well as sports. Now it is reprieve for would-be CASs courtesy of the courts, and also from the courts is that David Morathe and Jeremiah Kioni are back to Jubilee. This begs the question, will Jubilee survive the internal wrangles? This and so much more in not too long. But first things first, the highlights. Jubilee leaders round political parties dispute tribunal stays the removal of Jeremiah Kioni and David Morathe. Drama in the Senate. Azimio stages a protest in the chamber demanding the recognition of its new leadership lineup. Constituting the government, court okays the recruitment of chief administrative secretaries. And the faith of a mustard seed. A 12-year-old boy defies the odds to provide his mother with fresh water. Good evening, I'm Regina Manyara. Now, the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal has barred the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties from sanctioning the suspension of David Morathe and Jeremiah Kioni as Jubilee Party Vice Chair and Secretary General, respectively. The two had been kicked out by a section of the party's elected leaders, which held a meeting in Nakuru last weekend, which they claimed that was a national executive committee.
Embattled Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni and Vice Chairperson David Morathe got a reprieve on Thursday after the court stopped the leadership change at the Jubilee Party. Political Parties Dispute Tribunal Chairperson Desma Nungo ordered the Registrar of Political Parties not to effect Jubilee Party National Executive Committee's resolution to kick the duo out of the party's leadership until their case is heard and determined. Jeremiah Kioni, accompanied by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leaders, hailed the decision of the court accusing the Kenya Kwanza of using a section of Jubilee Party leaders to push their own agenda.
That there has been an attempt to hijack the Jubilee Party, to demolish the Jubilee Party, to destroy the Jubilee Party. And these attempts started way back in June of last year. When the first attempt was officially made, there was even an attempt to open a Jubilee Asili. Those efforts have not ceased.
The Azimio leaders used the avenue to hit at the Office of Director of Public Prosecution, which they claimed had become a huge threat to the rule of law.
We are witnessing an extremely dangerous trend where investigators and prosecutors have merged in our country. When investigators and prosecutors merge, Kenyans should be very afraid because there can never be justice under such circumstances. We are calling out the Director of Public Prosecutions. Mr. Nurdin Haji's conduct is unbecoming.
Ben Chumba, Prime Edition.
Tonight, our sign language interpreter is Susan Thuku. Now, let's still focus on matters of politics, where senators allied to Azimio la Umoja have threatened to move a motion to remove from office Senate Speaker Amason Kingi over what they term as disregard of the House standing orders. The senators accuse Kingi of failing to effect leadership changes on the minority side. The lawmakers briefly disrupted the proceedings before walking out of the chambers.
To ambassadors to order the chair what to do. Senator Mazayo, do you order the chair? You engaging me? Are you engaging me?
Senate Deputy Speaker Kathuri Murungi on Thursday found himself on the receiving end.
Senator Chalgei, have your seat.
After he failed to deliver Speaker's communication recognizing the replacement of Senator Fatuma Dulo with Senator Ledama Olekina as minority whip.
Why are you not communicating? That was my question. The changes. Because it is expected that you communicate the changes to about the leadership. We have no leadership on this other side.
Senator Madayo, with maximum respect to you, you are being disorderly for this reason. That you are not telling your colleagues on the minority side, Mr. Speaker, that you and I and the leader of the majority and others, we sat in the business committee of this house and made a decision on this matter.
If the communication is not here, then minority, you know where you pressed your request, which office. That is where you should walk and get the communication. But as I speak, this is the file which has no communication. So when I sit, I communicate.
I want to urge you, Mr. Speaker, and you know, Senator Sifuna, teach him some manners. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be that every time, it cannot be.
No point of order, nothing is out of order.
It cannot be, Mr. Speaker, that every time when other leaders are speaking, you want to be the one that you're shouting. You are shouting at the Speaker, you are shouting at the colleagues. For heaven's sake, you're only 3 months old in this house.
Nobody is going to scare us. This is our house. I was elected here and in both houses of parliament in this Republic of Kenya. None of you got as many votes as Sifuna. You are not going to threaten me. You have nothing on me. It doesn't matter what we have to do. We are saying we are going to change our leadership because it is our right.
But we are concerned because the substantive speaker is now exhibiting characters of a prefect. Someone who wants to come and prefect political parties.
Azimio la Umoja on Tuesday de-whipped Dulo after accusing her of disloyalty. The senators have threatened to initiate the removal of the speaker for failing to communicate the changes.
The speaker is simply a conveyor because he's not supposed to investigate anything. He's just supposed to receive that communication from the political party, the instruction actually, from the political party, and convey it to Parliament.
We know the character of the Speaker. We do not wish to discuss his character here, but these standing orders that the Speaker has chosen to violate give us room. And we are now contemplating exercising our right under Standing Order number 16, which is the removal of the Speaker. This is the next motion that we are going to bring.
Kamche Menza for Prime Edition.
And you can bet that KBC Channel 1 will be on hand to bring you what transpires at the chamber as far as Senate matters are concerned. Now, the Employment and Labour Relations Court has cleared the way for the appointment of Chief Administrative Secretaries. This is after Justice Monica Mboro ruled that the Public Service Commission followed a due process in setting up the offices. The Law Society of Kenya has moved to court to challenge the appointment of Chief Administrative Secretaries.
The Public Service Commission now has the green light to invite applications for the Chief Administrative Secretary job vacancies that were advertised in October 2022. The process never took off after the Law Society of Kenya moved to court disputing the legality of the creation of the office. In April 2021, the High Court declared the office unconstitutional, citing gaps in procedures and the public participation was not followed during the creation of the office. The ruling by the Employment and Labour Relations Court now puts in motion the recruitment that had been appended by the Law Society of Kenya lawsuit. Justice Monica Mboro, in her ruling, found that the Public Service Commission had followed the requisite law in setting up the office. Seraphine Nairobi for Prime Edition.
This particular issue came to the courts around October of 2022. Now to the drought situation. Now at the tender age of 12, Peter Kariuki Minor has accomplished a feat that most of his elders haven't. The grade 7 pupil has, through sheer determination, dug a 20-foot borehole to spare his ailing mother the agony of trekking several kilometers to fetch water.
In Mutanga village, Ndaragwa constituency, Nyandarua County, water is such a rare commodity. With the raging drought, residents are forced to trek as far as 20 kilometers to find water. This turmoil, seen the pain it subjected Peter Kariuki Minor's mother to, literally made him restless.
Kiwa tu nimelala pale akakuja akaniambia, "Mama, tunaweza angalia hii area nione kama tunaweza pata maji." Nikamuuliza sasa, utapimaje iweze kujua mahali maji iko? Kaniambia tu hata ikiwa atapima Mungu tu atamsaidia jue mahali maji iko.
The 12-year-old boy did not allow his tender age deter him from transforming the life of his family.
Kenya kilituma nichimbe hii shimo. Ni juu mama yangu alikuwa amelazwa hospitali akafanyiwa operation. Sasa mimi nikaona haizi kuchota maji kama wale wa mama wengine juu maji kwenye iko ni mbali kama kilomita 10.
Though a daunting task, his determination saw him get help from friends.
Nikitoka shule kwanza na change uniform na maliza homework, alafu nachukua vitu zangu za kazi, nafunua simu nakuja naingia naanza kuchimba, alafu natokea kama 6 hivi. Alafu nasaidia na rafiki yangu ama mama yangu kuvuruta.
After months of toiling and scooping soil 20 feet down, they struck water.
Bilangu kwa serikali ni atusaidia. Juu hii area hakuna maji na watu wengine hatuna vitu za kuweka maji. Mvua ikinyesha na huwa inakaa kabla inyeshe.
The borehole now serves more than 20 neighbors for both domestic and other uses.
How about that? Necessity is indeed the mother of all invention, but this goes beyond invention. This young man is already thinking about water harvesting at a time when the country is still struggling with the issues of drought. Now on to security. No guns have been surrendered to the authorities in Baringo, even as a 3-day amnesty period for the surrender of arms come to a close today. Residents continue to flee their homes even as a multi-agency operation continues to rid the region of bandits. Residents living in fear have had to spend nights in the bushes for fear of their lives, even as they expressed hopes of the operations yielding fruits. The bandits are said to be hiding in Korokon Hill, Gelecha, Dandar and Bartolo.
Sisi sasa tunakaa mwisho huko mlima Lomuli. Tunaenda kulala huko sababu ya maslahi ya chakula. Tunarudi tunatuma vijana watangulie, alafu tunaona leo ni saa 5 wamama wanaendaga saa 5.
Hata mwingine alijisalia kwa msituni na saa haya hakuna kitu che tunakula, masiwa hakuna, mahindi hatuna na mbuzi hakuna tena.
Sasa kilichoko serikali watumie mbinu yeyote watoe hii jambazi.
Now, a section of sugarcane farmers in Chemilil is calling for an end to the ongoing management crisis at the state-owned miller. The farmers claim that the standoff between them and the management is disrupting their farming activities and causing financial setbacks. A KBC reporter, Wycliffe Okech, spoke to some of the farmers who are expressing fears that the operations at the facility may soon grind to a halt.
The aggrieved farmers held a stakeholders meeting on Thursday to deliberate on the turn of events that has seen them go 3 weeks without pay.
The last time cane was done to suppliers was up to 29th of January, and that was when Mr. Nyangweso was in office. Immediately he left office, there had been no more payment done. So all cutters, transporters, farmers were paid up to 29th.
The impasse, according to the farmers, boils down to a court injunction that relieved one Gabriel Nyangweso of his duties at the company.
Resolution number 1 is that we want Mr. Nyangweso back in the office. That is the voice of the farmers. With resolution number 2, we are heading to court to be enjoined in the ongoing case as the farmers, because our interest must be taken into account.
Mimi naomba matransporta yote vile crisis iko ya maneno ya kulipa waweke tinga nyumbani, ile mtu ataka peleka miwa apeleka miwa Muroni. Wapeleka miwa Muroni paka Nyangwiso akuje. Alafu assign checks yote kuona sahi hakuna pesa hata ya kulipa tanboy. Matanboy yote nalia.
We want to be paid. We transport cane here, we want to be paid. We cut cane here, we want to be paid. And every service we render to this factory, we want our payment. And this continued staying out of office is jeopardizing all this process.
The farmers believe that there may be a plot to render the company incapable of milling sugar. They now want the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary to weigh in on the matter and bring a lasting solution, without which they will cut cane supply to the factory until normalcy is restored. For Prime Edition, I am Wycliffe Okage.
With that, we take a quick breather, but we have so much lined up for you, including updates on what has been making headlines in the business world. Do keep it right here.
Mheshimiwa President Mwai Kibaki, ndugu zangu, anaingia sasa kutafuta kiti yake for another 5 years. Kweli ya uongo? Tunaunga chama ambacho kitatawala kwa miaka 20 mbele ya KANU kuonekana pahali, au tutaunga chama ambacho baada ya miaka 5 kimeenda na KANU sasa igurume kama vile ilikuwa inaguruma zamani? Jukumu langu kama chairman wa chama ni kujua what is in the best interest of our party, because the political party's fortunes lie in being in power, not being in the sidelines.
After the conclusion of an impressive Athletics Kenya Cross-Country Championships, Team Kenya now sets her sight on the 44th edition of the Global Showpiece, the World Athletics Cross-Country Championships Bathurst 23 in Australia. Lined up for the titles is Kenya's contingent of 30 world beaters, ready to contest with more than 550 athletes from over 60 nations. Enjoy these spectacular races from Bathurst, Australia on Saturday, 18 February 2023, live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
How was your Valentine? Can you account for your person? Bado tunauliza. How was your Valentine? Can you account? Ama wewe ni mfalme wa mapenzi?
My person was in Naivasha.
What's a 2 year story? Smita, Mwali, hamujarudi. Umetuacha hapa na husband ya huyu pia.
Boni amechukua pengine.
I want to know the situation. Voglio sapere tutto. Ma proprio in italiano.
So it is amazing how they sang in both languages, and it came out so flawlessly, like as if they belong in those languages, which is now it brings the beauty of what Kenya is all about.
Tukue tuna handshake.
Eh?
vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth, uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent. Gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC sasa wamekama up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wanaoffer mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea Studio Mashinani huko Comarox, Langata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC Station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through Studio Mashinani.
Good evening, you're watching Prime Edition. Now over to the courts where the High Court has affirmed the election of Amos Nyaribo as Nyamira governor and dismissed a petition by Dennis Ayera challenging the results. Justice Kanye Kimondo in his ruling on Thursday noted that the elections were conducted freely, fairly and according to the law.
Nyaribo was duly elected as Nyamira governor.
I'm going to tell you, election for Nyamira held on the 9th of August 2022 was substantially conducted in accordance with the Constitution, the Elections Act.
The High Court in its ruling cited a lack of sufficient evidence to overturn the polls result that announced Nyaribo as the winner with 82,090 votes against Walter Nyambati of UDA, who garnered 49,281 votes.
The first and second respondents were validly elected as the governor and deputy governor of Nyamira.
The petitioner had argued that there was an alteration of vote tallies, especially in Form 37C, an act that led to Nyaribo unfairly winning the poll, and wanted the court to order scrutiny and a recount of votes. The petition was filed on September 7, 2022, and was seeking to overturn the election of Nyaribo as governor.
Mimi nilijua toka mwanzo kwamba hii kesi hakuna mahali inaenda. Watu walikuwa na story mingi kwa mtandao.
Meanwhile, the High Court on Thursday dismissed a petition seeking to nullify the election victory of Kilifi Governor Gideon Mung'aro. In a ruling delivered virtually, Lady Justice Anne Adwera Ongijo said the petition did not have any merit and dismissed all allegations leveled against the governor, his deputy, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC, and its Kilifi County Returning Officer.
Sasa hata kama alikuwa tunafanya kazi hatujaacha kufanya kazi.
For Prime Edition, I'm Ben Troy Njue.
On to business. Kenya is losing 10 billion shillings to water cartels annually while making millions of Kenyans go without water for weeks. Nairobi, Mombasa and Kiambu counties are the worst affected, with cartels colluding with local water officials to block and divert the commodity. To address the situation, the government has started a major crackdown to deal with the crime, with plans underway to make it an economic crime to sabotage water infrastructure in the country.
What started as water vending 15 years ago in Nairobi has now spiraled into a multi-billion shillings water syndicate involving criminals, water officials and unscrupulous politicians. So dangerous are the cartels that they have managed to hold many cities and towns hostage, selling them water at more than 10 times the cost charged by water services boards. The situation has been exacerbated by the ongoing drought, which has made the critical commodity scarce.
And this operation is meant to really fix all the leaking pipes, both in our town areas and also rural areas, and address the issue of illegal connection and wrong metering and to some extent tampered water infrastructure.
The cartels illegally connect their pipes to the county water boards, supplying water to neighborhood taps and water tanks where people pay to fill up their jerrycans and storage tanks. To address the menace, the government has embarked on a countrywide crackdown aimed at nabbing the criminals and sabotaging their efforts.
From the data we have in our offices, out of 360,000 customers in Nairobi who are connected with treated piped water, only 250,000 pay for water. The rest, close to 100,000 customers, are not paying for water.
Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Principal Secretary Paul Rono blamed the illegal connections by individuals for the water shortages being experienced in parts of the country. Already, the Ministry of Interior has set up a security agency under the administration police to secure water infrastructure in the country.
This is not acceptable, and this must stop. And that is why this operation will continue.
The 100-day operation for Linda Maji will then be cascaded to all parts of the country. Andrew Kiro for Prime Edition in Nairobi.
Now, the government has increased borrowing limits for the Financial Inclusion Fund, also known as the Hustler Fund. The increase will only apply to borrowers with a clean repayment record, locking out defaulters. Cooperative Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui says the adjustment in limits has been caused by a strong borrowing and repayment plan by Kenyans.
According to government data, Kenyans have borrowed a total of 18.6 billion shillings under the Hustler Fund since its launch 4 months ago. The report shows that out of the 30 million transactions, 10 billion shillings have been repaid, while 912 million shillings has been deposited in savings accounts. Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and MSME Development Simon Chelugui has said so far the National Treasury has disbursed a total of 1.8 billion shillings to the trust fund, which is managed by his ministry. In a bid to attract more borrowers and encourage compliance, the government has raised the borrowing limit for people with better repayment histories. Under the new loan limit, borrowers whose amount is pegged at 3,000 shillings will now receive 6,000 shillings, which will apply to all limit caps. The rates will be reviewed after every 4 months, and people with positive credit profiles will get better loan limits. This means that the changes will be implemented on an individual case-by-case basis, with an individual's borrowing record being referenced. Chelugui further says the government will launch a new product under the fund dubbed microcredit. The credit line is designed for SACCOs, startups and groups to borrow on behalf of their members. The fund will disburse between 250,000 shillings to 2.5 million shillings. Nduta Mokami for Prime Edition.
Clearly there that the Hustler Fund has adopted the risk-based lending system there. Now, still speaking monies is that the National Treasury is expected to table a 3.6 trillion shillings draft budget for the financial year 2023-2024. According to the draft budget policy statement, the government plans to spend 2.5 trillion shillings on recurrent expenses and 769.3 billion shillings on development.
This year's proposed budget of 3.6 trillion shillings promises to deliver an economic turnaround and inclusive growth. The draft budget for the financial year starting July will be an increase of 251 billion shillings from the current 3.39 trillion shillings. The draft budget focuses on agriculture, micro, small and medium enterprises, housing, healthcare, the digital superhighway and the creative industry. Kenya Revenue Authority has been tasked to collect 3 trillion shillings in the financial year 2023-2024, up from 2 trillion shillings collected in the last financial year through implementation of various tax policy measures and development of a national tax policy to further boost tax collection. According to the draft budget policy statement, the government plans to spend 2.5 trillion shillings on recurrent expenditure and 769.3 billion shillings on development. To bridge the budget deficit, the government plans to borrow 720.1 billion shillings, out of which 198.6 billion shillings will come from external borrowers and 521.5 billion shillings from the domestic market. This will reduce the fiscal deficit to 4.4% of GDP. The national government will take the biggest share of the cake at 2.25 trillion shillings. Executive is projected to receive an allocation of 2.1 trillion shillings, Parliament 40 billion shillings, while Judiciary has been allocated 21.9 billion shillings. The government plans to spend 991.3 billion shillings for repayment of domestic and foreign debt, interest and pensions through the Consolidated Fund Services. Education is expected to be the bigger gainer in the proposed budget at 597 billion shillings, followed by energy, infrastructure and ICT sector at 422 billion shillings. Health budget has also been reviewed upwards from 122 billion shillings to 154 billion shillings. Agriculture, rural and urban development has been allocated 75.6 billion shillings to facilitate attainment of food and nutrition security, agro-processing, employment creation and utilization of the blue economy. Wairi Mujenga for Prime Edition.
Food security, health and climate change shocks are among areas identified as threats to Kenya's economic growth. According to Economic Planning Principal Secretary James Muhati, fiscal stability, revenue mobilization and debt sustainability are paramount to building strong buffers against cyclical shocks.
The COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, which derailed economic activity, followed by the Russia-Ukraine war, disrupted Kenya's economic recovery momentum. This has been worsened by the prolonged drought that has wrecked the agriculture sector, exposing millions to food insecurity.
I therefore consider this launch timely and strategic in informing our policymakers on the potential areas that can be exploited to achieve sustainable and transformative development.
Economic experts now want the government to prioritize food security, universal healthcare and implementation of climate adoption policies.
Bottom line, we must strengthen economic resilience to caution the economy against future shocks.
Speaking during the launch of the Africa Foresight Report of 2023, Economic Planning PS James Muhati has emphasized on the need for enhanced revenue mobilization and debt sustainability to counter economic shocks. Muhati says the recommendations of the report will go a long way in informing government policies and plans to attain a sustainable economic recovery.
A new partnership between counties, stockbrokers and financial institutions will help unlock billions of shillings to the devolved governments. The Kenya Association of Stockbrokers and Investment Banks Chair Donald Wangunyu says counties will be graded according to their credit profile. The funding will help unlock funds for infrastructural development in the counties.
Kenya has a development funding gap of about 5 trillion shillings, with almost 70% of the annual budget being set aside for recurrent expenditures and the wage bill. To mitigate this, the Kenya Association of Stockbrokers and Investment Banks have entered into a partnership that will help the devolved units access billions of shillings for development activities.
This program will enable counties to access long-term financing at affordable rates and terms as compared to commercial bank loans or other forms of financing, and thereby accelerating their development agenda.
Under the deal, counties will be rated through an independent rating agency to decide their creditworthiness. Furthermore, private capital shall be directed to each category of development based on the risk profile. Kasib says it plans to have the initiative rolled out before county budget approval timelines. The two entities have also started a campaign to help counties join the platform before June this year. Counties will also get advisory services, SME credit guarantees, public-private partnerships, and a cap-and-trade system for carbon credit-based development projects.
Some of these investments would like them to come into the market as new asset class that can be listed for trading. When we talk about carbon credit, for example, trading, we want to encourage counties to undertake green projects, which therefore, because they are carbon based and they are carbon oriented, they can find their way into the market and be tradable. And that developer can be able to unlock that benefit.
Hibak Said for Prime Edition.
Now, climate-smart agriculture experts want legal frameworks formulated that will institutionalize smart farming in the country. Players in the agriculture sector want award climate committees created across the country to train more farmers on smart farming, including the planting of hybrid seeds that can withstand drought.
According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the country's food import bill hit a 5-year high last month. The country shipped in food worth 183.93 billion shillings in January this year from 155.42 billion shillings during the period under review in 2022. Players in the agriculture sector say the import bill can be reduced if the country invests in climate-smart agriculture to ensure farmers produce food throughout the year. The government has been encouraged to craft laws and policies that will entrench climate-smart farming into the country's food system.
As at now, we are proposing to have a lot of irrigation with the water bodies around so that we can have food despite the presence of effects of climate change. We are also promoting sorghum, which is a bit drought resistant.
The experts also want creation of ward climate committees created to train farmers on climate-smart agriculture, including the use of hybrid seeds to increase agricultural production.
Ideally, we've also gone through the Migori County Climate Change Act, which of course is a very good act and a very good document, and we've called for the departments to see how its implementation can be taken.
The government has been advised to expand existing irrigation projects in the country to mitigate against droughts.
Currently engaging different stakeholders to be able to come up with common ground on how we can fight climate change.
Frederick Moki for Prime Edition.
Tent camps in Masai Mara Game Reserve has started reopening after closing down during the COVID period. A section of camps have diversified into ecotourism to reduce the cost of operations and attract more tourists through an assortment of tourism services.
Data from the Kenya Tourism Board showed that arrivals in 2022 stood at 1.3 million, a 74.5% increase compared to the period under review last year. Buoyed by the numbers, hotels in the Masai Mara Game Reserve have started reopening in anticipation of more visitors. Olimpa Mara Camp is one of such establishments that have reopened after ceasing operations during the COVID-19 pandemic. The facilities manager have incorporated the use of solar energy and underground water in a bid to reduce the operational costs.
We have created a facility which is based on ecotourism. Our main goal is how do we refusionalize the product that can be able to create a better value to the tourism industry.
The venture is also aimed at conserving the environment and making the facility sustainable.
We look forward to take people on safari and to show them how we wish to preserve the Mara and how we should look at the animals in the wild.
And our Lodge Social is also helping our community that actually supporting our young generation to develop them.
Kenya focused to have 1.9 million international tourists this year, with the number expected to grow to 2.2 million in 2024.
The Kenya National Private Security Workers Union has petitioned the Ministry of Labour and National Social Security Fund demanding better terms of service for private security employees. The union is now appealing to the ministry and NSSF for protection and to look into their appeal, saying that the minimum wage policy implemented by the president has been applied by the respective security agency employers.
A research-based minimum wage, or the opposite, a living what? Wage. But you must do research first. Usiende tu ufanye mambo ya politics kule unasema ya kwamba 18% or 12%. It is irrelevant. We want a research-based minimum wage. Ndio pia sisi tusomeshe watoto, si ndio? Yes. Tupate medical, yes. Si ndio mambo ya transport kwenda kazini, yes. Na mahitaji mengine.
Now, we have so much lined up for you, including matters, sports there coming up with none other than Karen Kibet. Just to inform you that we have quite the sporting event that is going to be coming up on Saturday, and Karen Kibet is going to be bringing you us at speed in regard to those matters and so much more in the sporting arena.
Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu.
After the conclusion of an impressive Athletics Kenya Cross Country Championships, Team Kenya now sets her sight on the 44th edition of the global showpiece, the World Athletics Cross Country Championships Bathurst 23 in Australia. Lined up for the titles is Kenya's contingent of 30 world beaters, ready to contest with more than 550 athletes from over 60 nations. Enjoy these spectacular races from Bathurst, Australia on Saturday, 18 February 2023, live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Now, before we delve in the sporting arena, let's have a look at those stories that have been making headlines across the counties, where Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja says there's need to encourage the spirit of volunteerism in the country, terming volunteerism as an honorable and positive thing that should be encouraged in the community.
Speaking on Thursday at City Hall, Nairobi, after being inaugurated as the Red Cross patron, Governor Sakaja said he will champion the inclusion of volunteerism programs in learning institutions in order to help build a generation that is ready to help those distressed in the community.
We must encourage volunteerism. We must encourage people thinking about their neighbors. We must encourage, looking out for each other. We've become competitive to a fault.
Meanwhile, the clergy is calling on Kenyans to cultivate a culture of unity and peaceful coexistence.
Without looking at the situation, you immediately point a finger at someone because you want to blame. So we can begin to learn and treat people with more dignity. In that one sense, I think would be a very important lesson we could learn from the pandemic.
Elsewhere, efforts by the Kisii public health authorities to address sand flea infestation on humans are facing challenges such as retrogressive traditional beliefs.
Huku Kisii hizo fursa ziko na hazikui kwa shauri ya uchawi. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Ni ile kutokuwa na usafi katika boma ya mtu, ama yeye mwenyewe ajioshi vizuri, aoshi nguo zake.
And Principal Secretary of the State Department for Correctional Services, Mary Muthoni, has raised concern over the increasing number of children living with their mothers in Kenya's prisons.
It is sad. You know, these are children who come. We have not budgeted for them. And they need food, they need clothes, they need to be taken care of.
Finally, Meru University of Science and Technology has ventured into training students in E-West, becoming the first university in Africa to offer the course.
The first phase, we have 175 students. They have been trained on the E-Waste management and, how to collect them, how to manage it, and how to maybe bring them to the collection center.
Meru University Vice Chancellor Professor Ramana Sothiambo said the rapid growth of ICT and the economy has contributed to the massive generation of electrical and electronic waste. Jacqueline Masharia for Prime Edition.
Now, across the African continent, Tanzania has floated East Africa's largest domestically manufactured freshwater passenger cargo ship, the MV Mwanza Hapa Kazi II, launched at the Mwanza South Port. The Tanzanian government expects the ship to stimulate economic growth, especially after the 2026 railway project completion from Dar es Salaam to Mwanza.
The MV Mwanza Hapa Kazi II launch at the Mwanza South Port can carry 1,200 passengers, 400 tons of cargo, 20 small vehicles and 3 trucks. It is currently 82% complete. The Tanzanian government expects the ship to stimulate economic growth, especially after the 2026 railway project completion from Dar es Salaam to Mwanza. Tanzania's Deputy Minister for Works and Transport Atupele Mwakibete said that the ship will help open new markets inside and outside the country by starting new trips that will help facilitate commercial, business tourism and private trips. Elsewhere, South Africa's annual inflation rate fell slightly in January to 6.9% from 7.2% the previous month, but food prices continue to rise, the country's statistics agency, Statistics South Africa, confirmed. The main contributors to the annual inflation rate of 6.9% were food and non-alcoholic beverages, housing, utilities and transport. Statistics South Africa in particular, vegetable prices rose sharply at 5.2% between December and January. Bread and cereal prices rose by 22.1% in January compared to a year earlier, and meat by 11.2%. Inflation had reached an all-time high in the country of 7.8% in July, fueled as elsewhere in the world by the war in Ukraine. Finally, the International Fund for Agricultural Development said that it will substantially strengthen its support to Somalia and resume its direct investment after loan arrears resulted in a 3-decade-long suspension. Speaking during IFAD's 46th session of the Governing Council, President Alvaro Lario, this comes at a critical time when Somalia is facing critical challenges to its food security.
Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2,000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
Vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth. Uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent. Gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC sasa wamekama up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wana offer mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea Studio Mashinani huko Comarox, Langata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC Station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through Studio Mashinani.
Biggest odds in the world every day on selected matches. Make a decision. Mozart Bet.
Welcome back to KBC Sports News, your true sports partner. Where are we, your true sports partner? This Saturday, we will be airing the 44th edition of the World Cross Country Championship. That will be live from Australia, Bathurst. 453 athletes from 48 nations will battle for the top prizes in 5 events. In the main event, the 10-kilometer senior men, we will see Geoffrey Kamuror and Nicholas Kipkorir from Kenya battle it out with Joshua Cheptegei from Ethiopia, Jacob Kiplomo from Uganda, and Solomon Barega from Ethiopia. We wish all the athletes the best. Don't forget to tune in on Saturday to watch that mouth-watering clash that comes back after 4 years. Now let's take a look at the stories making headlines today, where the reigning Kenyan champions, Strathmore University women, were held to a 1-1 draw by Ghana Army ladies in the ongoing Mozart Bet African Cup of Club Championship hockey tournament at the City Park Hockey Stadium. Another Kenyan side, Kisumu Lakers, lost 4-1 to GRA ladies from Ghana.
Army ladies scored the opening goal in the 48th minute through a Koto charity after poor defense by the Strathmore University. The Kenyan side equalized in the 59th minute through Diana Wino to bag a crucial point. Strathmore University women got a walkover against Kanda Queens in their previous match. In another match, Kenyan side Kisumu Lakers were thrashed 4-1 by GRA ladies from Ghana. Strathmore University women, Kisumu Lakers, Blazers, Butali Warriors and Kenya Police are representing Kenya at the Continental Showpiece. This year's edition of Africa Cup of Club Championship will climax on Sunday after 1 week of play. Kingori Mwangi for Channel 1 Sports.
Thank you, Kingori, for that report. Strathmore University women's hockey team tactician Meshak Senge is the Star Times S-Jack Coach of the month of January. Senge, a former Kenyan international, becomes the 3rd coach to win the coveted award after Dennis Mwanja of the Kenya Lionesses rugby team and Serial's handball team coach Brian Matthews in November and December respectively. Senge led Strathmore University Scorpions to victory in the 2022 Kenya Hockey Union Women's Premier League title for the first time in the history of the Nairobi-based institution. With the recognition, Senge walked home with 100,000 Kenya shillings, a 55 Star Times smart television set, and a trophy. By virtue of winning the 2022 KHU Women's Premier League title, Scorpions have qualified as Kenya's representatives for the 2023 Africa Club Championship. Kenyan sprint sensation Ferdinand Omanyala has shattered his own record for the 2nd time in a week, chipping off 100th of a second as he won the Leven World Indoor Tour meet in France in a new national and African 60-meter record. Omanyala clocked 6.54 seconds to edge out Olympic champion Marcel Lamour Jacobs to clinch the crown with a powerful burst in the final half of the race. Omanyala had a slow step off the blocks, with Cisse and Jacobs gaining a yard ahead of him, but the duo could not match his breakneck acceleration. It was the 3rd victory for Manyara in his tour of France.
glance. He's the one still motoring. That was his aim of this meeting. He wanted to...
Congratulations, Ferdinand Omanyala, for continually stamping your authority in the short sprints. Moving on, Karim Adeyemi scored a brilliant solo goal to condemn Chelsea to a 1-0 defeat in their Champions League last 16 first leg tie against Borussia Dortmund at Iduna Park. Meanwhile, Serie A side Juventus faced Nantes at the Allianz Stadium in the UEFA Europe League.
The Premier League side missed chances as Joao Felix shot over from the good position and then hit the crossbar into the first half. Reece James also forced 2 fine saves out of Dortmund goalkeeper Gregor Kobel in the second half as the visitors grew in confidence against the host, who were themselves struggling to create many chances. Chelsea were undone on the counter midway through the second period when Ademi broke from inside his own half following Chelsea corner, knocked the ball past Kepa Arrizabalaga before slotting into the empty net area 4 minutes after halftime, and João Mario scored the penalty despite his shot being pushed to the bar by Simon Mignolet.
João Mario's done the little stutter.
Manchester City returned to the top of the Premier League for the first time since November as they leapfrogged leaders Arsenal with a 3-1 vital victory at Emirates Stadium last night. Meanwhile, Real Madrid cut Barcelona's lead at the top of the La Liga table to 8 points after a 4-0 win over Elche.
Tackle comes in.
Takehiro Tomiyasu's poor back pass allowed Kevin De Bruyne to lift a finish over Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale after 24 minutes. But Arsenal deservedly drew level 3 minutes after half-time.
Got there. Tomiyasu, it's a mistake. De Bruyne, first time, what a finish. Kevin De Bruyne has scored. It's a Tomiyasu, good running. He pulls it across off the line. And it's a corner. Well, hang on. What's the decision now? I think he's given a penalty, hasn't he? Right, yeah. A challenge on Nketiah. Here he goes. And he scores! Bukayo Saka sends Ederson the wrong way. Confident, cool, and Arsenal level.
Bukayo Saka scored from the spot after City's goalkeeper Anderson fouled Eddie Nketiah. City, lacking spark in the opening phase, improved after the break and had a penalty of their own ruled out for offside against Erling Haaland before they showed a ruthless strike to punish Arsenal.
Haaland's onside, I think. He's got options here. Gundogan's flicked it on. Danger. Jack Grealish scores. Jack Grealish has...
Gabriel lost possession to allow Bernardo Silva and Haaland to get up Jack Grealish for a deflected finish after 72 minutes before they ended Arsenal's hope within 10 minutes left.
De Bruyne, danger here. Haaland, goal. It's a really good finish. And Manchester
Inevitably, Haaland was the scorer from De Bruyne's pass to put the defending champions top on goal difference, having played 1 goal more than Arsenal.
Thank you, Salah, for keeping us up to speed with what happened yesterday night in the English Premier League fixtures. Currently, the Europa League is taking place with Barcelona battling it out with Manchester United. And sadly, as a Manchester United fan, Alonso has just scored and made it 1-0 in the 51st minute. That particular fixture is currently happening at the Camp Nou. I hope my team will redeem themselves from Alonso's goal. So that's all we had for you. Don't forget that on Saturday, KBC Channel 1 will be airing the 44th edition of the World Cross Country Championship that will be taking place in Australia. Geoffrey Camerol will be battling it out with Joshua Cheptegei, Solomon Barega, Jacob Kiplomo, Nicholas Kipkorir. Don't forget to tune in on Saturday. My name is Karen Kibet. Have yourself a peaceful night. I'll see you tomorrow with more sports news, but the bulletin is not yet over, as I do hand you back to my colleague, Regina Manyara.
Now, quick one in regard to the anticipation.
Biggest odds in the world every day on selected matches. Make a decision. Mozart Bet.
Now, a quick one before we also let you go, Karen Kibet. What should we be looking out for ahead of that very much awaited cross-country in Australia? And who is likely to be the favorite?
Joshua Cheptegei is the favorite because he's the defending champion of that particular event, the World Cross Country Championship. We are hoping to see Geoffrey Kamworor stamp his authority once again, because we've not seen him bagging any titles for some time now, because he's been out on and off due to injuries. So we are hoping that Geoffrey Kamworor will be able to reclaim his position in the Cross Country Championships.
Much so, because whenever we are watching the athletics and we see someone who looks like us, who has a face like a Kenyan athlete, only to hear that they are running for a different country. I heard in other quarters it will be Kenya versus Kenya too. Well, if you know, you know. I'm Regina Manyara. It was a pleasure hosting you tonight for Thursday Prime Edition. For further details, welcome to visit our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. Our sign language interpreter tonight was none other than Susan Fiku. Have a pleasant evening ahead.